Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I should unmute my mic, but I can hear you fine.
Oh, great. How you doing, Chris?
We are doing good. Just home an hour or so ago, had supper, and here we are. Got my bottle of water, and we're ready for this.
Oh, I got my tea in my Resistance coffee cup.
Oh, I have to do a video on that. Resistance Coffee Company messaged me a little while ago. So did you get it too?
Yeah,
big, huge awesome. Resistance Coffee Company sent me a sample pack and said, Chris, 12 months of coffee on us. Anybody that's listening to this right now, Resistance Coffee Company, please give them a look up. Order some coffee. They have been with us right from the start. Mischief Maker is one of the brands.
It is. I have some right here.
Exactly. Mine's upstairs.
Mischief
Great guys.
I know. I love it.
Trial last time, but I missed them. Unfortunately, it was a hectic time. But they were there. They came, and they've been supportive of us right from the start. So appreciate it, guys.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's great coffee too. You really can't beat it. Yep. So yeah, I mean, let's just get started. Tonight we've invited Adam Blake-Gallipeau. I think that's how I pronounce his name. I don't even know. And John Carpay will be joining us. We're going to be talking about some news that happened this week. You've probably all heard. It's been an exciting week, Chris.
What could that possibly be?
Oh, boy.
I mean, knowing that it was probably coming, and then when it actually comes, I was kind of like, okay, I was expecting this. They told me this would happen. But after it comes, and you're like, it kind of hits you a little bit, and it's hit me for the last probably over 24 hours of just kind of, there's like elements of anger and bitterness. It was like, we just spent probably $20 million of Ontario taxpayer money in the court system from the Crowns, and they're going to spend that much again to do it again. Sorry, Food Bank Ontario and whatever other causes that money could probably go to, but this is the priority right now. So.
Well, and I did a post about this yesterday, and I've got actually some pushback from some friends of mine on Facebook because I made a post about Doug Ford and his Attorney General's office. And his Attorney General's office does report to Doug Ford. So when I say it's Doug Ford and his Attorney General's office, I mean it. And we're talking about a guy that just flipped right out, like completely lost his marbles, started acting like a kid in elementary school, having a temper tantrum, and blew up all the trade negotiations with the United States. So while he complains and wrongfully and falsely accuses us of having a very huge negative financial impact on the province of Ontario during the convoy, which we know is not true, he just decimated the entire Canadian economy. So and you're right. I mean, the Ontario provincial government is literally throwing out cases left, right, and center. The first was a month and a half or 6 weeks that we were in our trial alone. They threw out 125 cases. So this is a choice that they're making to continue the prosecution of a mischief. It's a solid choice that they're making. They've had meetings, emails, they've discussions about this. And in the meantime, violent offenders, violent sexual offenders, repeat offenders are getting off with nothing. I mean, you saw I'm not going to talk about it in detail here, but you saw the decision from the Supreme Court last week about possession of stuff that we're not going to talk about. But
we would have been off the hook already. If we were just convicted of child pornography, then we would have been off the hook. It would have been a slap on the wrist and gone. But no, we stood up to the government, and that's why they continue. And that same Attorney General's office that's run by Doug Ford, or is answer to Doug Ford, is the same Attorney General's office that's filed for the forfeiture on Big Red.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's
they just have so much. They have money to burn when it comes to this, and I've said it before. It's like one thing I feel that is happening is these people. I hate these people, but I mean, the Attorney General's office or the government or whatever digs their heels in so deeply that they will never, I mean, you could show them evidence 6 ways from Sunday and they will never, ever, well, like Peter Soley said, not 1 inch.
Nope.
Not 1 inch.
And we're not the only
also
ones that are
found out
appealing,
at
right?
trial.
There's others involved with Convoy that are still going through the process and being appealed on this too. So, not that we're trying not to mention names. You got one guy that was heavily involved with Convoy that is now in the United States seeking asylum. So, you can't forget about these other people that were involved, because it's more than just Tamara and I, and it always has been more than just Tamara and I want people to know that.
Yep, exactly. So anyways, yeah, it's going to get interesting. I don't know what your lawyers told you, but honestly, I mean, even if we win this appeal, so here's the timeline basically that I was given, approximately, of course. Lawrence told me he figures it would be at least 6 months, 6 to 8 months to get this before the Court of Appeals. And should it pass either way through the Court of Appeals, it'll be another probably 2 years to even get to trial again. Yep. So, I mean, we'll have served our sentence by then, really.
That's the other thing. We're both appealing our sentences, but we're not appealing. We're appealing the sentence, but we're still continuing with the house arrest. So there's a way that you could do that. But if we're reconvicted of everything or that, you would have to be serving your sentence in 2 years from now or 2.5 years from now. So it really makes no sense. It is what it is. I'm adapting. Are you adapting, Tamara?
I am. I'm doing just fine. Yes, Brandon, it will be. There is no suspended sentences during this entire process. We will continue our sentence while we await the outcome of the appeals process, for sure. I think I'm doing fine. I mean, like I said so many times, when Dwayne and I are at an event or doing something or traveling somewhere, we're basically under house arrest anyways, because we don't really do anything. We just hang out with, so I mean, it's been okay. It was obviously a very busy couple of weeks. I've lined up some really great community service. We talked about that last week. So I started that this week, and that was really great. I really absolutely loved the food bank yesterday. And it's really, it definitely pulls at your heartstrings to see how many people are in need. And I was actually very surprised about how many people that I recognized and knew that it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
It is.
So at least I can do something good with my time. I'm happy to do that and help other people. That's, some things I've always liked to do. So we'll just make the most of it. My French lessons are going fantastic. Hi, Rachel. I hope you got my letters. Rachel Weir, hi. I hope you got my letters. I have some from you, and I have replied. So I hope you got them. Nice to see you here, Rachel. She sent me some very sweet letters. I know there is. Yeah, 1,300.
As long as everything's working out with the schedule, right? My biggest, like I said before, and I'll say it again, my biggest problem right now is trying to schedule my trucking loads around. A load came in yesterday afternoon about 3:30 that I had to have a truck under this morning, and we didn't have a truck except for me, and old Blue was here. So an email to the probation officer, and I said if I can leave, if she answered me yesterday, I would have been able to leave at 7:30 this morning, be back by 5. She didn't get it yesterday. She got it this morning, and her first response was, you shouldn't be leaving until this is on your schedule. And of course, I was sitting at home waiting for a truck was warming up in the yard, ready to go until I had that piece of paper. I wasn't going anywhere. I'm not taking that chance. So
the magic paper, our magic papers that say that we can go out into society. I love it.
For supper last night, I have leisure time, so I did my leisure time last night. So I chose that to go get the mail, go to Home Hardware for some electrical fittings, went for supper, went to Walmart, went to Co-op for groceries, and then it was like come home. But it would have been nice to go to a movie or something, but we just grabbed popcorn and came home.
Yeah, see, you're so lucky that you get to do that stuff. I'm not allowed to go for dinner or any of that stuff.
What are you allowed for? What do they call it? Quality of life. What are you allowed for time every week for quality of life?
Well, we call it necessities of life, and I'm allotted 5 hours per week. So but necessities of life would be like getting groceries or going to get gasoline or a medical appointment. And a medical appointment is something I would just schedule in advance anyway. So I mean, my daughter lives here. She can get groceries. I could order them to my house. I can pretty much order anything I want online except for justice.
Really. In this country? One thing we're thinking about
Amazon. I've checked Amazon. You can't find it anywhere.
Justice? No. And I think there's some pretty unhappy people out in British Columbia right now this evening, and it's unfortunate that
yes.
Supreme Court didn't hear that case, and the government is once again stepping in and overreaching and destroying a family's life in BC. So thoughts and prayers for Katie and her family and everybody. That is just
Katie, Karen, and Dave.
You got to take a little bit of a step back from it, because the anger starts to boil a little bit, and that's what they want, is they want ads. So I kind of encourage anybody, when you're angry on social media, which every now and then I do get, take a break from it, walk away, and then come back.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That was really, unfortunately, not surprising that the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that way, or just dismissed it. And I mean, I think that's the worst part for me to take, especially in light of the experience that we've had. It's just like, I feel a lot of the times regular Canadian citizens just get treated like they're nothing. Like we're nothing. All these institutions that are supposedly set up to protect our rights, to give us a voice, to give us a shot at fairness, when we're up against things like this, are failing us. They're not designed to protect everyday Canadians. And you see stuff like this happening in the Supreme Court, and just to have the audacity not to even hear their arguments, you're just dismissed.
Just destroying the family's life, like they've done so many times in the past. And yeah, it's unfortunate, and this is where we are in this country right now. Yeah,
it really is. So anyways, yeah, you're right. My heart really goes out to those guys. I watched some videos today, and Katie, watching her and Karen just broke my heart. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having, an agency come in and completely overtake your entire property and your livelihood and tell you that you can't just get out and shut your mouth. It's
and yet I hear this argument on social media every now and then from people on the other side, and they say, what freedoms have you lost? Well, lost to check quite a few. And thankfully tonight's show is about that, because we have John Carpay on here, and Adam, Justice Center, and Democracy Fund, and they're going to be able to give a little bit of history and tell where they're going right now with where the organizations are at. So
we've been so lucky, and we do talk about this often. I know I recognize, Chris and I have been in a very fortunate position to have organizations like the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms and the Democracy Fund really step up and help us out with our legal fees. But don't forget about everybody else that's out there. I know there's still a lot of crowdfunding campaigns for the Coots Boys. I know Pat King, his lawyer, is still taking donations because he's got a ton of legal fees. So there's so many. I mean, there's just so many that we all need help. But I mean, we're so grateful to have organizations like these standing up, not just for us too. I mean, these organizations have also taken on a lot of the trucker convoy cases and other very important cases. So
constitutional cases.
John is backstage. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Constitutional cases and defending Canadian civil liberties to this day. So very fortunate.
Yeah, we are. We're lucky. We're very lucky. And hopefully that we can help these organizations help other people too. That's one of the things that is great about them, is that people do donate for a cause, but I mean, it goes to help so many people. So we'll be putting some links up later on today, or later on this evening, on where you can help to donate for our legal fees and the legal fees of others also. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring on Tom Marazzo. Tom is going to help us with our interview this evening. So I think he's got an interview. I don't see Adam backstage yet, but we'll bring Tom on.
Hey guys. Jeez, I look 100 years old with this thing here. I don't know what's going on. I look like I'm wearing makeup. God.
Oh, you look great. I look old. Look at and did you know what I found out? Necessities of life does not include getting your roots done. apparently that's not a necessity. So this is going to get a lot uglier before it gets prettier, folks. So how you doing, Tom? How was your week? How was Washington?
Washington was incredible. It was a really good couple of days in Washington. It's already actually been a week, because I flew out the next morning. I think was on a 9 a.m. flight out of Washington. I had a great week. Just really enjoyed the history that I got to witness. Not really witness firsthand, but obviously it's kind of a big deal to get up to the White House and see all these monuments. The one that was really important for me personally was the Vietnam War, the wall. pretty impressive to see the 58,000 names of soldiers that died in that war. And, I took a picture of my hand just up against the writing. I didn't know the particular group of veterans, obviously, before my time, but I just wanted to get a kind of a scale on how small the writing is on the wall in comparison to the number of names. There's 58,000 names on that wall of Americans and Canadians. I have an uncle that fought in the Vietnam War. He was a member, military police, who then, believe it or not, went on to fight in the second Gulf War in Iraq in his 50s. But hey, whatever, Wow. But he did Vietnam, and he also did the Gulf War, the second Gulf War. So, no, it's incredible to me, because I've been to a number of capital cities in the last couple of years. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time in our nation's capital with the two of you. But I've been to Berlin, I've been to Warsaw, and I've been to DC, and I can tell you, it's really telling the way countries treat their war memorials. It's pretty impressive, and I think the Polish and the Americans probably do it the best that I've seen. I think Canada could do a hell of a lot better, but add it to the list.
Right, yeah.
We went over to France. When was that? A year and a half or so ago, and I got to walk the beaches in Normandy. That was surreal. Yeah. And then just to walk the cemetery where all those Canadian young boys were lying, and somber to say the least. And just the way that it was a clear sky when we got to the beach, and then as the day went on, the clouds rolled in, and it was just, I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate her.
Well, tonight's a good. It's good that we've got John and Adam on the show tonight, right? Because in times of war, you're fighting for rights, but in times of peace, you have lawyers that defend your rights in the courts. They don't have to defend them in the battlefield, but that's the point of defending them in the battlefield, so that you can go on and be a civilized society and govern your society through the rule of law, and through people like John and Adam, who have never lost sight of the role that the Constitution plays in protecting us from the government, or from something tyrannical like our government. But it's important. It's important because I used to have a very deep affection for police. And the reason I did this was because, a soldier will deploy in modern military time. They'll deploy for 6 months. Maybe they'll do a year straight, and they got to come home. But when a soldier is deployed overseas, they're in a theater of war, but they're not there with their families. Those police in the communities are in their communities with their families. And their theater of war, theater of operations, is the community that they live in with their spouses and children. And so that's one side. But obviously over the last 5 years, going on 6, I've been pretty disappointed and disgusted actually with some of the behavior of the police. I've also been very disappointed in, every institution in society, but in particular the lawyers. But here's the thing. It's easy to get down on the police. It's easy to get down on the doctors. It's easy to get down on the lawyers. But we can never lump them all as one, because John and Adam have long histories of defending Canadians from the things that they need to be defended against, which is the government of Canada, the provincial governments. And so in one sense, there's different levels of protections, but the ones that we need during peacetime, the ones we need the most, are lawyers to step up and defend us against this complexity, which we call the Justin Department, which I've started to refer to it as. But it's important to have people like this, right? Because without them, we're lost. We'd just be steamrolled.
Right.
They're all there. Let's bring them on.
Bring them on in. They're on in. Okay. Welcome. I'm going to bring in John Carpay from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Welcome,
Good evening.
John.
Glad to be with you.
For coming on such short notice.
It's my pleasure.
And where is Mr. Adam? There he is. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Hey, Tamara. Hey, Chris. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
Are you in a closet?
No, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm in my RV.
Oh, great. Well, that's nice.
Close.
That's cool.
Right?
Yes. Nice.
Hey.
Now, Tamara, I don't know if this is late, but Mark is available to join as well if
oh, sure.
interested.
Yep.
He's got the link. I sent it to him.
Oh, perfect. Yep, he's more than welcome to if he wants to pop in. Mark is also one of the Democracy Fund lawyers. Now that Adam's gone, moved to the West. Welcome to Western Freedom,
much.
Adam.
Thank you. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, Mark has been covering a lot of it. So if he's got the link, I'll just keep an eye for him to come on in. And yeah, without further ado, welcome. We've had a busy week, fellas.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. So I was going to say, Adam, there's the Lincoln Lawyer, which is a great show, by the way, but now we have the RV Lawyer.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, maybe I should make that a thing. Maybe I should make this my permanent office.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad.
Place to go where you can, get away.
Yeah, because when you tell your clients, hey, I got to go. I literally got to go.
It's on wheels.
We're packing up the whole office, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Short notice.
But John looks
so
like
we've
he's got
obviously
a more,
had a.
John has a well-established studio.
Got a great communication staff that built this for me. I'm very grateful.
Nice.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, go ahead, Tamara.
So I was just going to say, well, as most people, I'm sure everyone that's watching this is aware, I've filed an appeal on my conviction of mischief. That was filed by my legal team on Tuesday. Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Yeah, today's Thursday. Wednesday, the Crown prosecutors have filed appeals, basically from the paperwork that I've seen, against everything. It looks to me like they're appealing all the acquittals, the stay, and of course our sentence also. So whoever wants to take it away is welcome to. Let's talk about what comes next now.
I can't tell you what's going to happen next, but I just want to express that I'm really disgusted by the double standard that we now have in Canada, where you get prosecuted or not prosecuted based on your political beliefs or based on who or what you're protesting for or against. And we saw some time ago, there were some Aboriginals protesting against residential schools at the legislature in Manitoba. They tore down and vandalized a statue of Queen Victoria, which is criminal conduct in broad daylight with police watching. Nobody was charged. The Crown prosecutors announced sometime thereafter that it was just not in the public interest to prosecute people committing clearly a crime in broad daylight. Legally, you can destroy your own property. If Chris wanted to blow up Big Red, which I know he would never do, that would be legal, except if you're breaking some, bylaw against explosives or something. But basically, you can destroy your own property. If somebody else vandalizes or destroys Big Red, it's criminal, full stop. To tear down a statue is criminal conduct in broad daylight. The Crown and the police were totally fine with it. Why? Well, presumably because these were Aboriginals protesting against residential schools in the past. And I fully support their right to protest peacefully. I'm 100% in favor of that. But if you want the statue removed, there are ways of doing that. I'm sure that the Legislative Assembly probably has some committee that, or some person, some office, some department that looks after what statues are displayed or not displayed. You can use legal processes to say, we want that statue taken down, and, whatever, you could push for it that way. We also saw the Regina chief of police breaking COVID rules by attending and speaking at an anti-racism protest. At the time the protest was occurring, they had some stupid, 10-person maximum outdoor gathering limit. Well, there was a huge crowd there. Police attended. Meanwhile, his police officers are giving out tickets to people for protesting against lockdowns, right?
Yes.
So protesting against lockdowns, you're going to get a ticket because, you know, this virus is very political. It can only spread during anti-lockdown protests. But, you know, if it's an anti-racism protest, the virus is not going to spread. It's a double standard that is really disgusting, and that's undermining the rule of law in Canada. And that's to everybody's detriment because it undermines respect for the administration of justice. It undermines respect for police, for the courts, for the Crown prosecutors. That's a very bad thing. You know, we ought to have a country where we can sincerely respect and appreciate the police and the Crown prosecutors, and, you know, they're bringing themselves into disrepute. So that doesn't really answer what's going to happen with this case, but I just really wanted to say that's it's just outrageous and it's profoundly disconcerting to me. And I'll conclude there for now.
I kind of feel
Thank you.
the more they continue to push on this, the more they expose themselves and just how is it the corruption within and the double standard within. So it's kind of let them go, let them keep trying, and more people are opening their eyes to this every day. So which is good.
What are your thoughts, Adam and Mark? What are your thoughts on the news this week?
Well, I mean, you've got the news that that stems from your appeal, and Tamara and Chris, but also from the Crown's the Crown's appeal. So, as it relates to your appeal, it looks like you know, Lawrence is going to be appealing the conviction, right? And alongside that, he's going to be making comment and tying into this the right to free speech, which obviously is important. And the issue sort of like looking forward in this. The issue that, and Mark and I were just talking about this, the issue that we've got going forward is how do we had a guy who called us right after you guys were convicted, asking for advice on a protest that he was planning to stage. We were sort of hung up on this because as it looks today, you know, there are some. It appears as though if you're sort of in the periphery, you can be convicted of mischief, right? And that's not just with you Tamara, and it's not just with you, Chris, but it's also with I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you are aware of the Coots 3. We represented George Jansen. That was a 3-week jury trial we ran, and he was convicted with abetting through speech and logistics. So it certainly it requires, I think, you know, sort of for my part, it requires clarity on what the law is as it relates to our rights to protest. This is a problem we're now faced with. I mean, Tamara was, you know, calling for peaceful assembly in Ottawa. Hold the line was mentioned a number of times in the decision, and that and the prolonging of the mischief through that statement in the decision was sort of tied into the mischief and the ratio, I guess, so to speak, for the mischief. It was because you called for people to come and peacefully protest and then hold the line. That was enough. That was sufficient to convict on a mischief charge, which you know, it's from our perspective, certainly it's rather distant, and we're looking forward to getting some clarity at the Court of Appeal, where this is certainly going, and obviously this is going to be married up with the Crown's appeal. So, you know, I'm anticipating a 1 to 2 day appeal, but, you know, I think clarity here is necessary because, like I said, that guy who contacted us asking what his rights were. How does he stage a lawful protest in light of this, in light of these convictions? And
That's a good question.
It's very difficult to advise.
And it would be. I know, sorry to barge in, but I know, like even in her decision, in Her Honor's decision, she did make a point of trying to say that the sentencing was to restrict deterrence from protesting. But I mean, this whole thing would be, like you just said, some people are phoning you to ask what they can do to ensure that they're not going to get a conviction if they want to exercise their right to peaceful assembly and their right to free speech. So that tells me that the damage is done. People are. So maybe it is only 12 months of house arrest and only an additional 6 months of a curfew. But you have to take into fact the previous 3.5 years, the bail conditions, the trips to Ottawa. Like, who's going to want to sign up for that?
Well,
it is a deterrent.
If I can, Adam, you just left Ontario, right? And you moved west?
I did.
Okay. So April of 2022, I believe, is when Doug Ford passed Bill 100. And I don't know if you know the ins and outs of that. He passed that very quickly in Ontario. It's basically a bill which was meant to stop any future protests in the province of Ontario involving a vehicle. So he compounded the difficulty for the public. So penalties could be a year in prison, $100,000 fine, or both. If you were wrongly convicted and the police officer who laid the charge wrongly laid the charge, he was actually immune from any form of prosecution or lawsuit. So Doug Ford in his cabinet moved very, very quickly to pass that, and because he had a majority government, still has a majority government because, Ontario voters, need I say anymore. But he passed that very, very quickly. Like, it was 3 up, 3 down, and there you go. You've got now Bill C-100, and it passed just before the election we had in June. So, yeah, very, very, it's much more difficult now in the province of Ontario to do a protest if you involve a vehicle. But I would say do it anyway. Not with a vehicle, but in a different way. Do it anyway. I mean,
I didn't say that. Just putting that on the record.
No, Tamara Leach did not. It was all Mark Joseph who said it.
But then even holding the line, like the NDP or Jagmeet Singh or somebody just came out with a great big poster that last week
hold the line,
for a rally, hold the line. So I mean, it depends on who's saying it, I guess, right? Mark, do you have any thoughts on everything that's transpired this week?
Well, I'm trained to be paranoid, and so I'm not going to say anything about the live appeal. Like Adam said, we need some clarity, and I think we'll get that at the Court of Appeal. But I mean, look, governments are definitely looking at restricting charter rights, whether it's to protest or free speech. We're in Ottawa. Everyone probably knows this because Bill C-9 is being debated, and that seeks to amend the criminal code to codify a definition of hatred that is, the Liberals say it's the same. The Liberal government said it's the same as what we have now, but we disagree. It's actually much lower for the Crown to prosecute alleged hate speech offenses, and they're also seeking to amend the criminal code to stack an additional freestanding criminal offense if the underlying offense arising from any act of parliament is motivated by hatred. So that's a little convoluted way of saying if you commit an offense under any act of parliament, that could be the National Parks Act, the Labor Act, anything, the Canadian Human Rights Act, and it's found that you did so because you were motivated by hatred. Well, if this amendment passed in Bill C-9, can then stack on another criminal offense, a freestanding criminal offense that could involve jail time. they're proposing to amend to add further offenses if you block a religious building. And they're removing the Attorney General's consent to file hate speech charges. So they're really looking to restrict what we think is legitimate speech, unpleasant, offensive, obnoxious speech, maybe. But the threshold now is low, and they're proposing to lower it even further. I mean, Adam and I are representing a street preacher who was arrested and charged for, I think, causing a disturbance. Just for preaching gospel on the street corner. And John Carpay probably speak to this. He represented a street preacher for preaching the gospel near the Santa Claus parade. And he was charged with
causing a disturbance. And yeah.
No, it was 176 sub 2, John, correct me if I'm wrong. And that's obstructing a religious an assemblage of persons gathered for religious worship. Which is bizarre. My point is, the police already have plenty of tools to deal with criminal conduct, and the government is now proposing to give them even more tools to restrict speech. So they've gone after your right to protest, and now they're going after your right to free speech. So, I don't know where this is coming from. I can speculate, but they're definitely restricting your charter rights.
Well, let's
if I can add in on
standard. I just wanted to go to your point, John, of the double standards. We can have non-Christian religions blocking major intersections in Canada's biggest city, but you can't have one individual person preaching or even silently. Well, maybe that's the UK doing a silent prayer. You're going to get picked up and harassed by the authorities. And so when we look at, again, another double standard, it seems like this government seems to be building a double standard against people who are of Christian faith or descendants of Christians or were raised in Christian communities and environments where, you can, as a Muslim, do the call to prayer in front of the largest Christian church in Montreal. And not a thing happens to you or any individual within your group. Or you can do a prayer in the middle of a busy intersection in downtown Toronto, and nothing happens. But one guy at a Santa Claus parade, geez, that's as bad as whispering for 3 seconds in my ear, where you're going to get arrested after giving a speech, right? It's ridiculous to see the double standards. So and I think that's an important thing to recognize, is there is a very powerful double standard between newcomers and old stock Canadians. And maybe that's a crude term, old stock, but that's what everybody knows.
Yeah. John?
Well, double standards are, you're likely to see more of it. If Bill C-9 passes into law, the definition of hate is so subjective that it almost lends itself. Okay, it's very subjective. There are, even the six of us on this call, and we're fairly like-minded on a lot of issues. But if we were all to watch the same YouTube video or see the same flag or the same symbol, some of us might say, "Oh, that's hateful," and others would say, "Nah, it's just expressing an opinion," and vice versa. Other people would look at a different YouTube video and say it's hateful. No, it's just the expression of opinion. In Bill C-9, it's almost comical. If it wasn't so serious, it's almost comical how they twist themselves into a pretzel trying to define hate, which is an emotion. You don't really know for sure if it exists in somebody else's heart. I mean, sometimes it's fairly obvious, but you don't really know for sure. So they say to discredit, humiliate, offend, ridicule, and hurt the feelings of somebody is not hate speech. Disdain and dislike are not hate. However, detestation and vilification, now that's hate. I mean, go figure that out. A good law, by definition, is clear so that the average person, whoever, average person of average intelligence can read it. And there's lots of good laws on the books. I mean, the laws against shoplifting, like they're pretty clear as to what's prohibited. There's not much of a gray. There could be, questions at trial about the evidence, or maybe the evidence is not clear as to whether somebody did it or not, but the law is very clear. What is shoplifting? What is murder? What is assault? So on and so forth. And here it's like, detestation and vilification is hate, but dislike and disdain is not hate. And apparently you can mock, ridicule, discredit, and offend people and hurt their feelings, and that's not necessarily hate. And the worst thing, and Mark already mentioned this, it's the removal of a current requirement whereby if the local police and Crown prosecutors in, Ottawa, Saskatoon, Victoria, Halifax, wherever, if the local police want to commence criminal prosecution against a Canadian over what he said, they need the approval of the Attorney General. Now, attorneys general are not infallible and they can make mistakes, but it's kind of a sober second thought. It's a review process from somebody that's possibly in a different city, and it adds a healthy check so that maybe the local police are very inflamed, or maybe they're responding to a lot of complaints. Theoretically, police shouldn't do this, but I've seen it happen where police get a half dozen complaints or a dozen complaints, and they'll issue a ticket or criminal charges, and they know it's not warranted, but they've had a lot of complaints. Well, the Attorney General, if there's no basis for a prosecution, would kibosh it. The very fact that you have that review process means that it's an appropriate restraint on local police, local Crown prosecutors. Well, now that if Bill C-9 passes, that'll go out the window. So now we're all at the mercy of local police, local Crown prosecutors, who, if they feel something is hateful or if they get a lot of complaints, it's taking a step towards the situation in the United Kingdom where thousands of people get arrested over a mean tweet or an intemperate tweet. And this doesn't take us all the way to that point, but it's a dangerous step in that direction. So, small item of good news, the government is largely back down on Bill C-2, and that's in response to so many Canadians contacting their MPs saying Bill C-2 is bad, it violates my privacy, it outlaws cash, gives Canada Post the right to open letter mail without a warrant. And so the government took the immigration and refugee and border components out of Bill C-2, put it into Bill 12 as a separate bill, which is what it should have been to begin with. You shouldn't have, 5 different topics in one piece of legislation. So they put it into Bill 12. They're going to push hard on that. They might get conservative support. I have no idea. And the really bad parts of Bill C-2 are kind of still stuck in Bill C-2, but the government's put it on the back burner. So it shows what you can achieve. It shows Canadians what Canadians can achieve when you contact your MP in large enough numbers. They do listen.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, that is somewhat good news, at least. I hadn't heard that, so that's great. Wow.
Very informative when you go to the town halls, by the way. John, I don't know, Adam and Mark, do you guys do the town halls or not? But when John does a town hall with the GCCF, it's very informative. John gives a lot of information at those. So if you see anything in the future, make sure you go to your way and check it out.
Well, I just want to follow up a little bit, if I can, on the yes. Bill C-9, because it's the new offense of willful promotion of hatred, but there's also the new offense of intimidation of enumerated buildings. Okay, so this is if you block certain buildings that they've enumerated, which include buildings that are places of religious worship, it will result in an additional charge. So, for example, during the convoy protest, imagine also being like, if this were applied prior to, imagine also being charged with this new offense that blocks, let's say, so a truck is blocking a road, and at the end of that road happens to be a church, right? Or happens to be a synagogue, or happens to be a mosque. This Bill C-9 will create an additional charge that has its own actus reus, it has its own mens rea, and will be pursued moving forward. Everybody involved in the trucker protest arguably could have been charged with this new charge that is on the books. That if passed will be on the books. So, and that's of course a problem, right? I mean, how, you know, everybody's supposed to do their due diligence, I guess, now to see, oh, well, okay, if I block Wellington, how many churches are on Wellington? Okay, well, this church, this, okay, well, I guess I can't because this will be 2 charges instead of, or this will not only result in a mischief, it will result in this new enumerated building charge. So it's just, it's, you know, it's as a result of, and I think it stems from protest, right? I mean, what else could it be the result of? So, you know, in our view, it's certainly, it's extremely overbroad, and it will capture civil dissidents, it will capture legal dissidents, and it will capture people who are looking to legally protest more so than is already captured. How then can anybody be, if I have another phone call, how then can anybody be advised, well, okay, do you have a church at the end of that street? How far up the street? We don't know. None of this has been tested. It's going to be tested, but you see the problems that will ultimately ensue.
It's a slippery.
If you've got the Ottawa police, they'll park you in front of the church, even though you agreed not to, and then you can go after them for induced error if you're lucky.
And even if you listen to them and move your vehicle after they tell you to, they'll find fault in that. So hey.
Yes.
Well, this is. I mean, I went through you guys. Recently, I had to for another matter go through the PLT chats, and it was. And I was sitting in the courtroom for a number of them during your trial, and it was very apparent. I mean, you know, all of the officers seemed to be saying, "Oh, very cooperative." You know, assist. There was, I don't recall reading any. Oh, you know, Tamara was uncooperative here, or Chris was uncooperative there. In any event, so anyway, that's the ultimate problem that we're concerned about, and of course, it'll have a chilling effect on free speech, free assembly, and protesting in the future.
What's case law going forward, especially with Tamara and I's case, right, and the appeal process coming up? Do you feel, all three of you, do you feel it's very important that we appeal this and we try our best to beat this now for future generations that are going to face the consequences of this case law that's been presented in the last number of years?
Look, if the Crown's appealing, then typically the accused person also appeals. I mean, I have no idea about your discussions with your own lawyers, nor do I want to know. But theoretically, a deal could have been struck, and the Crown said, "Okay, we're going to leave it alone." And if the Crown had said that, who knows? Maybe you guys would have left it alone. But when the Crown appeals, you're going to go up to the next level of court anyway. You might as well take your best shot at cross appealing on other issues. I wanted to just add very briefly to this double standard with Bill C-9. It was frightening when the minister introduced it. He said, "We are introducing this Combating Hate Act in response to rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, transphobia, and homophobia." Says nothing about the dozens of Christian churches that have been burned to the ground, destroyed by arson in recent years. Nothing, not a word, not a peep, absolutely nothing. So combating hate, it's all about anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, transphobia, homophobia. It's very ideological. Now, those words are not, that's not in the bill itself. It was merely the minister's announcement when he was talking about the bill. But I find that really frightening. I'm not aware of dozens of mosques or synagogues that have been burned to the ground. And in saying that, I'm not minimizing the pain and anguish that people feel when you see, spray paint on the wall of your house of worship. It's absolutely wicked, and it should be punished. Although even there, you punish the. You don't need to go after the emotions. If somebody's got the can of spray paint and you catch some spray painting, that's mischief right there. It's criminal behavior. But we've got to change the culture. That's what's going to cure these problems. It's a very long-term project, because if you have a culture in which the vast majority of people expect their governments to respect human rights and constitutional freedoms, that culture is going to trickle up into the police forces, the law societies, the law schools, the judges, the Crown prosecutors, the teachers, the university professors. So that's the long-term goal, is to transform the culture, because then the double standard will go away. We'll go back to far better application of the rule of law, part of which is you're all equal before the law, regardless of your political opinions, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I was going to say, during the COVID mandates, the lockdown era, how many places of worship did you see the RCMP surround with a fence and arrest the leaders of those other religious organizations across Canada, other than
Jason Kenney with the church in Jason Kenney's
Grace Life Church
built the big fence around Grace Life Church.
Early morning RCMP raid, over 50 RCMP, and they put up a fence for almost 2 months. You know, and Tim Coates, I think, spent 35 days in remand, 14 of that in solitary confinement. We saw, you know, Artur Pawlowski. We've seen a number of yes. So we've seen. I mean, even in Ontario, we saw what happened with Hildebrands in the church there. You know, $270,000 in fines. How many mosques, how many temples, how many other religious places of worship did we see that behavior take place? Zero, from what I understand. And I'm not trying to race bait or religious bait or anything like that. But again, I think it's important to not be politically correct all the time and hide behind the obvious things that are actually happening in front of us. You know, I think these are important things to, as, you know, Canadians, to stand up and say, hey, I'm not going to be distracted by these dog whistles and these accusations and stuff. I'm looking at the facts. I mean, right now we have over 100 crime scenes at churches across this country. And my understanding, I haven't heard of any investigations. I think there may have been 1 or 2 arrests where the people perpetrating the arson were so stupid they got caught right away. Right. But again, like, these are facts. These aren't emotions, and it's not about the race baiting and the religious baiting. It's just facts.
Yeah, we, as part of our review, Bill 63, that was the combating online hate bill that was scrapped. We reviewed some studies on. Okay, it seems like an obvious question to ask, but do censorship laws actually lead to a more or less harmonious society? And there was a study out of Scandinavia that did a meta-analysis of all censorship laws across various societies, liberal democracies and more authoritarian societies. And it turns out that censorship laws can make a society more harmonious as long as that society is authoritarian. For liberal democracies, when you enact censorship laws, it actually turns out that the society gets less harmonious. And that's probably, I would say, a result of part of this parity problem you get, because it sets up a dynamic between it provokes ethnic and sectarian resentment, right? Why them, not us? Why us and not them? And as John mentioned, it leads to bringing the administration of justice into disrepute, because people start to see that it's not fair, right? And maybe there's a good reason why they're going after some religions and not others, or maybe it just appears that way. It's not actually that way. But if people start to form the idea that their group is being treated differently, that's a problem for the legitimacy of the government. And there's no easy way out of that for the government. The government can't just easily say, look, we don't mean to target you guys. It just looks that way. We're not really doing it. That's not a good enough answer. And so they're setting themselves up if they enact these censorship laws, if they treat people differently. So I don't know. I think that's a problem that's insurmountable for them, which is why you shouldn't erect these laws, basically.
And it's our job to stand up as Canadian citizens and voice our opinion to our elected MPs, which I think too many people in this country right now are busy trying to feed their families and stay working. They don't have the time to do that. And I think that's all by design, unfortunately.
Well, and like John was, I think it was John that said it earlier. It's the numbers that we need. It's the, like you said, there was a successful petition with regards to C2 or some pressure on it. But I mean, when you have a situation like, say, well, the Freedom Convoy or the Ostrich Farm, when you, like I said earlier, we have these institutions that are put in place to protect the rights of Canadian citizens, to give us a voice and to ensure fairness. And so I'll just use Katie and the Ostrich Farm for an example. They went to their MPs. They've had politicians come out there. That failed. They've tried the judiciary now. They've applied for, to the Supreme Court for stays of applications, completely dismissed. So what do average Canadian citizens, like, what is your advice for average Canadian citizens who want to do these things? They want to make a difference and have their voices heard, but they just seem to be getting ignored every door that they knock on.
I think one, like a very simple, straightforward, not that hard thing to do right now, Canadians should contact their MP and say, please vote against Bill C9. It violates free speech. It's bad legislation. You don't need a lengthy scholarly essay on all the ins and outs of it. If you let your MP know, vote against Bill C9, and because there was that kind of broad-based uprising, peaceful uprising against Bill C2, and they got so much pushback from so many different quarters. Like, it wasn't just the Justice Center and the Democracy Fund, but there was the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and all these groups and people. So everybody's saying they don't want Bill C2. The Liberal MPs heard that as well, and it lowers the level of enthusiasm in the caucus. Now, the Prime Minister is a tyrant over his own caucus, and probably to a large leader of the opposition's a tyrant over their own caucus. But even a tyrant has to listen, right? So if a lot of Liberal MPs are saying, I don't like Bill C2, my constituents don't like it, it does sway matters. So something practical Canadians can do, tonight, or do it while you're listening to this podcast. You email your MP and say, vote against Bill C9. And when enough people do that, it makes a difference. The other big thing is to take out a membership in a political party. We got political change in Alberta because there were thousands and thousands of people who took out a membership, who were very angry, justifiably so, with Jason Kenney, who's a tyrant and a human rights abuser. And thousands of people took out a membership in his political party. And then when it was time for a leadership review, he barely got 51%, and he resigned as leader. And then all of these party members, they were eligible to vote in the leadership race that came up not long thereafter. So now we have a very different premier who I think is much more sympathetic to the ideals of freedom and asserting provincial jurisdiction. How did that happen? Well, it happened because people took out a membership in a political party. So that's another good means of having more influence over what goes on than somebody who's not a member of a political party.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Adam?
Anyone else touch on that?
No, I think that I would echo that sentiment. That's the best way, I think, in my estimation, to affect change as somebody watching this podcast, is to contact your MP. I think that was very well stated by John.
I mean, the other thing you can do is just run at a municipal level, run for a board, school board, whatever it is, and get involved in politics. You can make incremental small changes. Municipal bylaws can be changed, and you get experience in the political arena, and you can build on that. A lot of young politicians have developed skills that way, and then you find success at the next level. A lot of political parties have good young people with new ideas, and those ideas get tested in the marketplace, and some of them get annealed into hard metal, and they become law. But that's, as lawyers, we perhaps put a lot or too much faith in the political process, but the legal process, but that's all we got. I mean, the alternative is pretty frightening. So we want to stay peaceful and lawful, and get involved at the local level and work your way up.
I couldn't agree more with that. Like, I think I've been going across the various events, and that's always been my message, because my firm belief that local action has a national impact. And, I'm not the one who coined that mentality, but I think it's really, really important. And I don't think that Canadians in my lifetime have ever been this knowledgeable about the law, this knowledgeable about the charter, and this knowledgeable about politics. And that's basically what you said earlier, Chris. It's like they're exposing themselves. So now the public, they've done so many shitty things to the public that it has forced the public to really, really start to pay attention to what these psychopaths are doing. And I say that across the country, from every level, from the prime minister right down to the school board trustees, because, this is where it's easy to blame Trudeau or Carney or whoever you want to blame. But the fact remains that nothing that was done to us over the last 5 to 10 years was done to us by those people. It was always done to us at the local level. It was always executed by the police. It was always executed by bylaw. It's always executed by municipal governments, in local institutions within our societies. It wasn't the federal government that did it. They set the conditions for it, absolutely, but they're not the ones who executed the plans. And that's an important distinction. And I constantly tell people, get involved. Don't take your foot off the gas now because you're demoralized. Put your foot fully on the gas and push harder and fight back harder. And my last advice for people is always to, if you're trying to get, let's say, 10 school board positions, well, get 100 of your friends and overwhelm the numbers. Overwhelm them. And make sure that you have a 1 in 10 chance of your person getting that spot. And maybe, you get 4 or 5 of you into those positions. But don't take your foot off the gas now. This is the time to push even harder. So I like your point there about, the politics.
Running for public office is a thankless job. I've watched my father be on our rural municipality council for many, many years, and then he is the first one to get complained to, but never the first one to be praised for actions. And so it takes a broad set of shoulders to run for that, but there's always your school councils, there's always your rural municipalities, there are all your city councilors. There's so many different levels of government that you need to start in and get involved and take a stand and just be part of it.
But how do you, because I get this question all the time. People are always asking me if I'm going to get into politics or going to run. You got, Tom, you have. Chris gets this question all the time. And my first thought is, like, how, even as a politician, so even if you go in and say you want to run, I'll just say the Conservative Party, you choose to seek a candidacy in the Conservative Party. I mean, you're already going into a system that is so set up the way that it is, and that it feels like it's almost impossible to make any change. I mean, you have a party whip, for example. So these guys, have to go in and vote how their whip dictates. I mean, I think the system itself needs an overhaul and some scrutiny as well, because I think you just get stuck in the system and just become a cog in the wheel.
Mm-hmm. But you look at how universities have changed over the last 30, 40 years, from decent institutions that welcomed free speech, free thought, free inquiry, open debate, where people really believed, we're seeking truth. And so everything is up for discussion. And, if you disagree, you come out with reasons why somebody else's idea is bad, and you articulate the reasons. And through that debate process, you learn more, you become more enlightened. And universities have completely gone down the toilet. But how did that happen? A big part of it is it's the people within. The system itself was changed. Now, in that example, it was changed for the worse. But, and I agree with your point, Tamara, that, yes, there are systems in place for sure. And even every political party, whether it's the Conservatives or anybody else, they've got their own system, so to speak. Right. But the system is made up out of people, right? So it's still a good reason to get involved, because you can change, systems do change depending on who is in that, right? Or you could take, for example, a church. Like, a church could be like one kind of church in the year 2000, But then in 2010, maybe they're a very different church, for better or for worse, because of the people that are going there, right? So the other thing about being a member of a political party is you actually get to decide who makes it onto the ballot in the general election. This is a huge power. So if, let's say you live in somewhere in Canada and the Conservative Party is very strong in your area, right? Well, the Conservatives have their own nomination race. It's like a mini election. And if you're a Conservative Party member, maybe you got two people running. One of them's really good, really solid, pro-freedom. The other one's a schmuck, opportunist, not that principled, just wants to be an MP. If you're a member of the party, you can vote for the good guy so that he can make it onto the ballot. And so you have way more power than your average voter because you actually have a say in who makes it onto the ballot. And this holds true federally and provincially for your provincial parties. So I do advocate for join a political party. If you hate all of them, pick the one you hate the least. And, spend your $10 and become a member.
But you know what? I agree with you, John. But look at in Alberta, the best example of a grass movement change to an established party was Take Back Alberta. Look at what they did, what they accomplished.
But they worked within the political party to get Jason out and to put Danielle in.
Right.
But they did that because they were able to do that because they were party members. If Take Back Alberta was sort of its own group with its own membership, if those people hadn't taken out a membership in the United Conservative Party, then Take Back Alberta would have achieved nothing. They achieved it because people took out a membership in the political party.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was a very strong thing. Now it's got to go another level now. It now has to get to the point where it's not just about, okay, I'm gonna upset the incumbent, put in who I want. Now it has to be, hey, we put you there for a reason. Okay, so act accordingly. So it has to keep going. Like, this is what Eva Chipiuk always says. Democracy is very hard. It's really, I would say I'm not going to say
like a marriage,
that, but
it's a work in progress.
It's a marriage.
It's a work in progress.
Right? Absolutely.
There's beautiful things. There's crazy things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And look at this new mutt that they've got out in, Nova Scotia, who just crossed the aisle and joined the Liberals. Right. And we've got this mutt doing this. There's rumor has it, there's two more that are considering doing it as well. And if they do, we now have a Mark Carney with a majority government that nobody in this country wanted. Nobody elected.
Nobody.
And so this is why I say there's more work to do within the parties and the system, because in my view, it's clear to me, I think it's a major catastrophic flaw in our system of government where you're just allowed to join the other party. Screw your constituents. You should have to resign and then run in a by-election to get your seat back.
That's it right there, though. The key figure about that right now is it's two parties that run this country right now, and you vote for the party instead of voting that independent MP in your district, and that MP then represents you in the House of Commons. They represent the party, and I think that system's flawed and needs to be looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look,
absolutely.
We all understand the limits of a parliamentary system, and in the United States, it's a lot different. Is it better or for worse? I don't know, but look, my mother. In the 60s, she was a bank teller, and she complained about her wages. She's like, how do I get more, how do I raise my wage? And her father, who was the head of the Stelco union, said, well, form a union. And she did. Now, I don't know how to form a union, but my mother at, 27 or whatever, formed a union. And she organized all the women tellers. And she went to her, to the board and said, we're a union now, and I'm going to negotiate. I'm going to bargain for more money. And so that's the example I give. If you want something, you got to go organize and get it. No one's going to give it to you. People are going to tell you no. People are going to tell you can't do it. You're going to fail, and it's going to be hard. But that's all you can do. Otherwise, you're just going to have to take the lower wage. So you got to make. That's my example. That's every time I'm feeling down and I can't, this can't be done. That's what I go back to. I've seen it done. So you got to.
That's amazing.
Just got to get up and do it. If she can, you can. That's
absolutely.
Yeah, and look at Matt Strauss. I just saw the comment there. Matt Strauss was a doctor who the CPSO was targeting him and trying to destroy everything that he stood for and what they trained him to be. And he's now a conservative member of parliament. You got Aaron Gunn. He, great guy, community member exposing the actions of the government. You got Andrew Lawton, who was at the convoy with us, now a federal MP. So it kind of gives you a little bit of hope that, one of the establishment parties is willing to take on people that they would otherwise have considered fringe, right? So that's kind of hopeful that they're taking them in. But to go back to your earlier point, Tamara, I really hope that guys like that can go into the system and improve the system, as opposed to they go into the system and they get crushed by the system.
Right.
And that's where, if they're willing to stick their neck out and go and fight for us, then we have to get involved and get their back, and to tell the party, you're not going to do that to these guys. Right. Mm-hmm. And to go to your point, John, yeah, you got to get involved. You have to get involved. You just can't sit back and wait for some political messiah to show up and make everything great. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. We have to do it.
Yep.
Without,
and that's the thing. I think a lot of Canadians, as we've experienced, they're waiting for a savior. They're waiting for somebody that's going to come in and swoop it all. But the responsibility lies with us all. If we don't stay vigilant with our freedoms, they're going to try and take them away, just as we've seen. I mean, that's human nature. That's what's been happening since the beginning of time. And I think, we can blame Mark Carney, we can blame Pierre Poilievre, we can blame Justin Trudeau, but I've always maintained that the fact of the matter is that Canadians have let so much stuff happen because we are passive, and we all want to believe that our government has our best interests at heart and they would never lie to us. And so you know what I mean? You know where I'm going with that, right? So I just lost my train of thought, which happens completely all the time. What was I saying?
Get organized. Take better notes. But yeah, exactly. I don't want to sound black-pilled. I agree that people need to get involved. I'm so happy to see Aaron and Andrew and Matt Strauss and some really great MPs that have been elected. And so that gives me hope. For sure, that gives me hope. But again, we have to take responsibility. Canadians have played a big part we are all individually and collectively the product of the choices we make. It is my philosophy. And so, if we've let it get this bad, or maybe not let it get this bad, but it has gotten to a very serious point in Canada. We know that with those same numbers coming together, that we can still make a difference in some way. You just got to find something that you're interested in, you feel passionate about, and get behind it.
Can anybody give any updates on the travel mandates appeal that was in process here? Was it last week, I believe?
With Carl and I can't believe I just lost his name.
Sean.
The mootness case. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Sean Rickard. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. I followed it a little bit. I didn't have a chance to sit in on the hearing. I know the hearing was just a few days ago, but I actually don't know. Things kind of happened in our lives the last few days. So I've been busy talking to all my lawyer friends and,
I've been trucking.
Yeah. I don't know what the outcome is either, but I do know that they were pretty active on social media, giving out the login codes and everything like that. And it was extremely well attended on Zoom, from my understanding. But I don't know what the result was, or if it was, no offense to the lawyers, a lot of lawyer speak, that everyone just kind of went get to the ending. So I don't know.
Some good arguments.
I'm just going to let.
Some of these court cases, they even when there's a loss, there's still good that comes out of it. Like the Justice Center provided lawyers for Brian Peckford, and there were 4 different court actions and many good people involved in addition to the Justice Center. The government officials, when they were cross-examined, they admitted under oath that there was no medical or scientific basis for the travel mandates. There was no medical reason to bar somebody who didn't get injected from getting onto an airplane. This is something that came out that, apart from a court action, there's no way that the prime minister or any politician would admit at a news conference that there's no medical basis for their repressive human rights violations. But yet in the court action, because people are being questioned under oath, which doesn't provide an absolute guarantee against lying, but it does reduce the amount of lying quite a lot when people are sworn in and they've promised to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help them God. And you can be in serious trouble if you get caught lying, in a court action. So in that court action, you have bureaucrats saying, no, there was no medical basis, there was no scientific basis for keeping millions of Canadians off of airplanes and trains. So there's really good things that come out of these court cases, even when we lose, in terms of informing the public and getting some transparency and even some accountability, not as much as we want, but we get some accountability through them.
Well, an interesting thing about that particular case. So the day that we at the convoy, actually on the day that Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, which was Valentine's Day because of how much he loves us all. When in that conversation that we had with him, and I don't know if you remember this, Tamara, but it was very, very specific. And Brian Peckford had said to me, to all of us, he said, look, we considered even a pandemic, because Section 6, the mobility rights, are exempt from Section 1 and all of the other restrictions. He said, we even considered a pandemic, and we did not believe that was justification to stop people from traveling interprovincially or in and out of their country. It was a bridge too far for the people that drafted that. And he said they specifically talked about pandemics, and they said it still wasn't a good enough reason. So, if the people who framed this and created the charter believed that to be true, then it's amazing to me that a judge would say, oh, that's moot. That's not a valid argument. It's like, wait a minute, you've actually just fundamentally done damage to the charter itself. And I think it personally this is my belief, is that there was no judge in this country that wanted to have Brian Peckford come into their courtroom and try to tell Brian Peckford about the charter. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a single judge in this country that wanted to face him in a courtroom, and they were looking at any excuse to say that, oh, well, okay, well, if that's how you write it or wrote it, then I guess you know what you're talking about. I'm just an interpreter. So I think.
Remember our courtroom when our Crown prosecutor didn't know who Brian Peckford was, which I will keep bringing that point up because I find it quite embarrassing. Adam, were you there that day? Mark?
I don't believe I was.
No.
That might have been Alan.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Maybe Mark was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the judges are a product of culture, and they were corrupted by fear. It's the title of a book I wrote about these court cases.
Yeah.
The judges were so afraid that they actually, in some cases, they just wrote the media narrative into their court rulings. We had a case in Manitoba challenging the lockdowns in Manitoba, and the judge wrote in his judgment that COVID is unprecedented and it's the worst pandemic in a century. Well, COVID's not unprecedented. The Spanish flu of 1918 was far worse, far more deadly. And even in the past century, the Asian flu of 1957, the Hong Kong flu of 1968, both of those were more deadly than COVID. They were both global pandemics. So the judge is writing a false assertion into his court ruling, and there's just no evidence to support it. But the judges were corrupted by fear, and the judges are a product of our culture. So we're going to win in the end when we change the culture, because it will trickle up to the law societies, the law schools, the lawyers, the prosecutors, the police, and the judges, and the politicians of all parties. That culture is going to trickle up. And that's why, even if things get worse in the short run, which they may, we're on track to win in the end, because truth always vanquishes the lie.
I agree.
Can I?
And by
ask
the
a
way, I was just
question?
talking to somebody yesterday, John, that was reading Corrupted by Fear, and they had high praise for it. I think it might have been my dad, actually.
Oh,
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
can
you. Nice to hear
Can
that.
I ask a quick question, and any of the lawyers can answer this? What is your thought on the subject specifically related to judges regarding judicial notice? And the reason I ask this question is, I view that we have three branches of government for a reason, for checks and balances. But when a judge gives judicial notice on something that affects the rights and freedoms of every Canadian in this country, don't you think that the judges had a responsibility to be the check and balance when it was so important in this particular case? This is something that I can't get a lot of agreement on with any lawyer. Like, I've had a lot of different opinions on this, but I think it's important to kind of pick away at this idea that far too many judges took judicial notice with the actual government, with the evidence they just sided with the government. They didn't want to look at the evidence. And so one of the questions I'm seeing in the thing is, what is judicial notice? So I'm going to throw it out to anyone who wants to take a swing at that. And don't everybody rush to the microphone, but go ahead.
Judicial notice it's a tool in the judge's toolbox, and like any tool, it can be used for good or evil. You can use a hammer to pound some nails into a piece of wood. Conceivably, you could use a hammer to kill somebody. So judicial notice is supposed to be used only in a situation where a fact is not disputed by reasonable people, and it can be verified by immediate access to sources of indisputable accuracy. So, for example, if somebody walks into court and says the earth is flat, it's not round, and I've got all these witnesses, and I want to take up a whole bunch of court time to prove that the world is flat, not round, the judge can take judicial notice and say, we're not spending court resources on this. The earth is round. Get on with your other arguments, because we're not getting into this. Judicial notice in and of itself, it's just a tool, can be used for good or evil. Now, it was used for evil. For example, Justice McGaw in Saskatchewan, in a case involving injecting a 12-year-old girl with COVID vaccine against her will and against her mother's will. And he actually said, he took judicial notice saying that the vaccine is safe and effective for adults and children. And we know this to be true because the Saskatchewan Health Authority and Health Canada have said so. Now, that's just absolutely obscene. That is an abuse of a legitimate tool because the government is a litigant in court. So a good judge would never say, well, the plaintiff said it, it must be true, or the defendant said it, it must be true. And here he's got, Health Canada and Saskatchewan Health Authority have both said that the vaccine is safe and effective, so I take judicial notice it is safe and effective for adults and children. And he ordered the girl to get injected. I don't know if that's me or somebody else. He ordered the girl to get injected. Fortunately, it was overturned on appeal.
Oh, good.
That's a solar flare affecting our microphone.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think
that
it's an important thing to kind of pick apart, because we had seen that many times. And in my view, I think the judiciary, or any judge who failed to actually even have the wherewithal or the courage to look at the evidence, failed to be independent from the rest of the government and to protect the public. I saw it as a major failing of the judiciary to be an independent arm of the government. It just got in lockstep with the government and said, yeah, sure, whatever you said. So I think that's something that people hopefully in the future are going to study as law students or what have you. But I just, this is something that's always kind of bothered me about the judges. They bring themselves into constant disrepute by not protecting the public and protecting the people who put them in their chairs a little too often for my liking anyway.
Yeah, I can't comment on any one particular case, and I don't know specifically where they did take too much judicial notice, but I would have liked to have seen a lot less deference to authority by the courts, in particular respect to the COVID cases. I mean, in some cases, the court didn't accept expert evidence from the other side. They did accept it from the government side, and okay, that's fine. The government has their position; they have an expert on the stand, but that every piece of evidence needs to be tested through cross-examination. I mean, we're defense counsel; we have a bias, but Adam and I never take, and I suppose John doesn't either. You don't take the other side's word for it. I don't care what it is. It could be the most basic fact. You just don't accept it. You say, well, prove it. You're going to have to prove it in court to prove it to me now. And often they can't, right? What you thought was indisputable, it turns out to be disputable. And
well,
so
this is
go ahead, Adam.
No, sorry. I was just going to say that's the issue right there, because it's, it requires, if you're accepting a fact as true without any evidence, as it is in judicial notice, it's not subject to reasonable dispute. So, and this is the issue. This is how it can be abused, because it's solely within the judge's discretion what is within reasonable dispute, right? And they're going to lean on whether it's capable of immediate or accurate demonstration, and as John pointed out, there's instances where what is reasonably disputable is I mean, this is a test that is subjective. So if you've got an individual, if you've got an expert, and I mean, and we saw this during COVID, it was rampant throughout COVID. We've got individuals, doctors who are disputing the evidence that is accepted as truth by the public, by the judiciary, and if there is judicial notice taken in these contexts, I mean, that's obviously a problem. I mean, there is a reasonable dispute. You've got an expert, you've got an individual who spent his life, educating himself and learning about a specific subject. He's an expert who can reasonably dispute it, and so that is not what should be captured by judicial notice. And I think that's the point that John made clearly and Mark fleshed out.
Thanks for answering that, because I just I've got some conflicting feedback from lawyers before, but that's good, and I think that the public should actually know more about this. But yeah, thanks for answering the question.
I've got one here from Lori Mackenzie Carmichael, who asks, do judges earn their title, or are they voted in at some level? Judges in Canada are appointed, as far as I am aware. Voted, I think they're voted in some states in the United States, maybe all of them. I don't follow that closely.
Nope, that's it exactly. And people often say, we should elect our judges. I'm not convinced that would improve the situation, because if you have a rotten culture where fundamentally the problem is, I hate to say it, but it's Canadians, it's we ourselves, right? There are a lot of Canadians don't care about freedom. They don't care about governments respecting human rights. They don't care if the government takes away their freedoms of speech or religion, conscience, peaceful assembly, travel, mobility, bodily autonomy. So there's a lot of people that don't care. So that's a rotten culture that we have to fix, is get it to a point where we've got, 60, 70, 80, 90% of Canadians that really cherish and appreciate the free society and want government as a servant, not as their master. But because we've got a rotten culture, if we did elect judges, I don't think it would necessarily be an improvement. It might be a little better, it might be a little worse, but no. But they're appointed, and they're appointed by our elected representatives. So if you don't have enough elected representatives that truly appreciate freedom and placing limits on governments, if you have these authoritarian-minded elected representatives, they appoint judges who think like themselves, basically. And so if you want better judges, we got to change the culture.
Yeah,
Agreed. It goes right back to that culture again. I agree. Go ahead. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I should know more about. It's a good question. I should know more about the appointment process than I do. But as far as I'm aware, is a judicial selection committee, and that is formed by the government in power. But one complaint I have heard, and this is from a judge who had retired, was that isn't usually nonpartisan. So the government there's no pressure on the government of the day to form a nonpartisan selection committee. They can pick whoever they like without any pushback. And I believe there probably should be a nonpartisan committee to produce some balance in the selections, so you don't get lopsided judges that are all of one mindset. You want to mix, and we have great judges now, obviously, but over time, if that's the selection process, you might get a buildup of people who all think one way, and that's a problem, I think.
Well, I was excited when we got Mosley, and then he retired. We finally got one that rolled our way, and then the guy said, "I'm out of here."
I think he was actually retired when he made the decision. They brought him out.
Okay. Well, that's even better. If he did us a solid, we'll take it. Finally.
Yeah. When do you guys suppose we're going to expect an answer on that? I know they had the hearing, I think, back in February for the appeal on Mosley's decision, but I find it odd that we're now, coming into mid-November and we still haven't heard anything as a result.
It's not uncommon for them to take a year and a few months. It's unfortunate. I really think we have too few judges in Canada, because like in the United States, when they were challenging lockdowns and, church closures, this, that, and the other thing, they got decisions from courts within weeks or months. In Canada, it's just one example. There'd be many. We sued the Alberta government in December of 2020 over lockdowns. We finally got a court ruling July 31st, 2023. So it was a little bit more than 2.5 years. We're talking about the violation of our charter freedoms of association, expression, religion, conscience, peaceful assembly, pastors locked up in jail. Like, this is a violation of our charter rights, and it takes 2.5 years to get a ruling. Now, there's only two explanations I can think of. Either the judges are lazy and they don't work hard, or we have too few judges. I think it's the latter. I currently know some judges. I've known judges over the years. I think they're very hardworking people. They're doing the best they can to, not keep people waiting. But when you've got too few judges and the work it's like a waiting list for medical procedures, right? If you've got either too few doctors or too few operating rooms or whatever, right, you're going to have these wait lists. And so we really need, in my view, we need to have, if we appoint more judges, even if, 1% of them are lazy, if we have more judges, we can get rulings on criminal, family, constitution, any kind of case. You can get a ruling within weeks or months. That's the way it should be. I think it's a complete disgrace that we have to wait for years to get a court ruling on something that's really important. And I think the solution is to appoint more judges.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying instead of hallway medicine, we've got hallway lawfare, in a sense.
It's the truth. And I mean, and they're all time sensitive, right? Because if it's a criminal case, whether you're the accused person or whether you're the victim of the crime, both parties, you want a quick resolution. You don't want to have to wait for 1, 2, 3 years to finally get a ruling. Is this guy guilty? Yes or no? If it's a family law dispute, maybe you're, having a very unfortunate, tragic fight about where the kids are spending Christmas. You don't want to wait. If it's a contractual dispute, somebody cheated you out of $10,000 in a contract, so you're suing them. You don't want to wait for 2 or 3 years. So this one can get fixed. Now, of course, if we appoint more judges, I would hope that they would be good ones, right? That's a separate issue. But we would get court rulings faster, I think, if we appointed more judges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Adam and I have spoken about this before, but that we have scarce judicial resources, and we do have a problem with how the Crown's office allocates those judicial resources, right? I mean, complain about the decision, but the fact that they're spending 45 days on a mischief trial, for you folks, is a decision that someone in the Crown's office made, and that's valuable judges, courtroom time that they spent on you guys. Did it need to take 45 days? I don't know. I don't know how it got up to 45 days, because that's a lot of time. And
I think were we over 50?
Probably.
I think we
Probably
got over
pre-trial
50,
motions.
just over
I mean, but
50. Yeah.
To Mark's point, like, it's 45 days now. Now there's appeals.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at,
That's right.
by my estimation, I'm saying, I'm thinking 2027 is the likely, maybe March, maybe, February 2027 is the likely date of a hearing. And then what? And then there's a decision there at the Court of Appeal in Ontario.
Right.
And where do we go from there? Well, probably the SCC. Right. And then what's
Well,
that?
this is-
2029,
this is one of the-
2031?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and
But
this
do you think
is,
it's going to take 15 months just to get to a hearing, Adam? Sorry, Tamara. Do you think just to get to a hearing, you think it's going to take a year and 2 months just to get to a hearing before the Court of Appeal? I would have ventured to guess for like 4, 6, 8 months, which is still too long. But
I mean, this is probably a better question put to Polymarket, but I think I would guess about a year. I mean, and now we're in the trenches. We're in the lower courts almost exclusively. So it's a different kettle of fish there. But we're not seeing any short order court appearances, even for a day or two. Like you said, I mean, I think this would only be a day or two, even with the joined appeals. So yeah.
So
I would guess
think
at least a year would be my best guess.
And Lawrence told me a few months ago, he speculated it would be minimum 6 to 8 months to get this to the appellate courts also. So
The
wheels of justice don't grind very fast. And if they ground any slower, we'd be going backwards, in my opinion. But
so
one thing I'm mindful of, as we spent all those days in court, there was people probably sitting in remand centers that were looking for a day to sit in front of a judge to get a bail process too. And that was one of the things that was on my mind. The amount of people that took second place to that for our, over 50-day mischief trial.
It's not just that; it's also more serious offenses. How about people charged with murder? How about people charged with aggravated sexual assault? Mm-hmm. This is all put on the back burner. I mean, 45 days is it's extremely. I mean, that's a massively long trial. By
Paul Bernardo's trial lasted 40 days.
There you go. Case in point.
So
perfect.
Exactly.
So Adam, I want to ask a question, Adam, because you brought up the Supreme Court of Canada.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Sorry. Dick Wagner. Sorry, I can say that. You three shouldn't. But Dick Wagner, during the convoy, publicly wrote some very disparaging comments about the Freedom Convoy in the middle of the Freedom Convoy. So any case that goes before the Supreme Court of Canada related to the convoy, they're going to be one person down, and it's the key guy, right? Because there's no possible way that he could preside or be a part of any case involving the Freedom Convoy after he publicly came out and disparaged the convoy at the time of the convoy. So how are we going to have a Supreme Court with no Chief Justice?
I mean, you have to be able to look at that. And if the judiciary is with the assumption that the judiciary is functioning the way it should, you have to be able to say, okay, he can. These are individuals who can divorce their political or other opinions from their opinions as it relates to cases of law. So that's that's all I'm going to say about that. I guess as it relates to the Supreme Court and as it relates to Justice Wagner, it's I guess that would come down to this is an individual who also wants to be able to freely express his opinions politically, and then the question I guess that you're asking is this going to be a foregone conclusion as it relates to what he would rule legally? and he's charged with separating those two things. It's his undertaking. That's something that he's sworn to do. So you know, that's what the assumption I guess is. That's my sort of non-answer to that question, I guess, Tom.
No, and sorry if I cornered you on it, but I would say what's really disturbing about this is that, you know, he knowingly did exactly what he did, and he knew what the consequences were going to be. And I would think that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court would have the wherewithal to keep his opinions to himself in an ongoing situation, so that there'd be no potential in the very future to be in a position where he would have to recuse himself. I don't know if that's ever been done, but even if it did come to that, I don't believe for a minute that his hubris would be pushed aside and he would recuse himself in any Convoy-related case. I just don't believe that. But John, you had a thought on this one.
Well, a few points. It was part of a judge's job description that you not comment publicly on anything that might ever come before you. And so it's just completely out of place. It's not a problem that he's got an opinion. All judges have opinions. All judges have biases. You know, they might love unions, they might hate unions, they might be pro-life, they might be pro-choice, they might believe in big government, small government. They all have their opinions. That's perfectly fine. Part of the job description, and this is to not bring the administration of justice into disrepute, is you shut up, you keep your mouth shut about your personal, you know, other than private conversation with friends and family. I've had, you know, many dinners and lunches with judges over the years, and they speak freely and frankly in a private conversation. That's fine. If you've got a microphone in front of your face, you don't comment on, you know, what do you think of the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa? It was totally out of line. I wouldn't bank on him recusing himself, because there was a formal complaint filed against Wagner before the Canadian Judicial Council, which exists to uphold good standards of conduct and behavior for judges. So it's not a body, you know, if you disagree with the court ruling, you got to appeal it to a higher court. But this is about judges' behavior. And so there's a bunch of lawyers that signed on to this complaint against Wagner, and the Canadian Judicial Council dismissed the complaint against Wagner and said the complaint has no substance, no merit, for which they provided no reasons, because, I mean, obviously it did have substance and merit, but They just dismissed it. So I wouldn't bank on Wagner recusing himself if your case goes to the Supreme Court or any other case related to Freedom Convoy.
Well, that's what I thought.
But we're not sure where we're going anymore.
Well, you guys, we have been online here for an hour and 42 minutes, and I want to be very respectful of your guys' time. I know that you agreed to come on very last minute of a frantic phone call after Chris's brilliant idea yesterday. So I appreciate you guys. Do you have any final thoughts, anything you want to add before we let you guys go home?
So I want to thank you, Chris and Tamara, for the stance that you've taken, and you've endured a lot of suffering, and I'm very cognizant of that. And Tamara, when I think of your 49 days in jail, it just makes me angry and very sad. And you've paid a big price, and I really appreciate what you and Chris have done, and so many other people as well, really taking it on the chin and suffering for the cause of truth and justice and freedom. So I'm just very grateful to you and to so many other people that have really suffered a great deal. And thank you.
Oh, we appreciate it, John. You've been with us since the start, and we'll never forget that. So it's been an honor standing with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, John, because you know what, I've known about you a hell of a lot longer than you've ever known about me, because you guys were out there right from day one, helping and supporting Canadians. And I donated whenever I could to the JCCF. I donated to then Fight the Fines. Back in the days when I was still employed as a teacher, because you guys were doing amazing work, and to be, unfortunately, being represented by you guys Not a position I wanted to be in. None of us did, but we're just grateful that you do exist and you are in our corner. So thank you to all of you.
Absolutely. Everything that you've done for us. The JCCF was there literally right from the start. They came in like knights on white horses, really, you know, when a bunch of us, because we're not legal people. We were just there to ask for a conversation and ask to be heard. And so, John, thank you for everything that you and your organization have done. Great people over there. I highly recommend you go check out their website. Both of these organizations are charitable organizations. So any donations that you make towards legal fees or anything, you will get a tax receipt back. And like I said, they've helped. So how many cases would you estimate, John, from the Freedom Convoy alone that you guys helped represent?
Well, at one point we had 300 cases in total. And I think the Democracy Fund, to its credit, had an even larger number. I think Mark and Adam can speak to that. So
yeah, you betcha. And again, to Mark and Adam, I mean,
2,900.
Wow. Sorry, 2,100 ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. Mark and I handled about it's certainly over 300 now.
We appreciate all that. Adam, any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Yeah, look, I mean, I think being able to freely protest is the backbone of any free country, of any democracy. And I think the coming months and years and your appeals will flesh that out, and will be very telling of the course of Canada's future. So you know, I'm hopeful. And I'm looking forward to see how this is handled.
Yeah, I'm not backpilled on this at all, because I get up every day motivated to keep fighting, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do that because of our donors, because of organizations like JCCF, TDF, and CCLA. There, you know, lots of civil liberties organizations, and one little win in one little court in one little county, that pushes the ball forward, right? Like every, you know, journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So that's what we focus on every day, winning however we can. And even if you lose, and you learn, and you get up and you do it the next day, see if you can win. So I'm hopeful. I think people should be hopeful. So, you know, thanks for fighting the good fight, Chris and Tamara.
Thank you for helping us fight the good fight. If it wasn't for you guys, I mean, that's the thing, you know, if it wasn't for you, I shudder to think the situation that a lot of us would find ourselves in. So thanks, you guys.
We're not going anywhere.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, we do appreciate that. Someone's
maybe
got to
once
stand up for the guy.
shop and we're done this court stuff, we can drive around the country and show some people some support in different places. So
yeah, that's right. Exactly. We can still speak at events. We can still go speak at events. It's just got to be paid work now.
Right.
Employment. It has to be employment. Anyways, okay. Thank you guys so much. I am going to let you guys out off stage now. And thanks again for coming. Chris, don't go anywhere. And have a good night, guys. Thanks.
Thanks very much for having us, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care.
And I will just pop those links up one more time.
Tamara, before you go.
www.jccf.ca, and then of course the Democracy Fund. That JCCF is assisting Chris with his legal fees, and as you heard, like so many others, and the Democracy Fund is helping me with my case also, and as you heard, plenty of others. So give them a like and follow.
GCCF is also helping us with a $300 million lawsuit from the citizens of Ottawa that so many people are part of. I think there's 20 of us on the case that the GCCF is sponsoring right now. So GCCF lawyer James Manson in Toronto is the one that's heading that one right now, and he's doing what he can to. I don't really have any updates for you right now on how that's going, other than the money's still in the escrow, and the court battle is still there, and Paul Champ is still at large. So
yeah.
Yes.
Before you kick me off, Tamara, you wrote a book. It's called Hold the Line. And
I did.
honestly, I hate plugging. I suck at self-promotion, but you know what? There's 3 people on this call, and one person's not working right now. So, don't be afraid to give yourself a little bit of relief now. You're not bringing in any money, Tamara. You're under house arrest. You're doing volunteer community service, which I find personally hilarious. That one of the ways to punish you for serving your country is to do more service to your country in your community. You can't make this crap up, right? But no, I know, Tamara, you don't want to make the plug for your book. I know that it doesn't feel good for you, but I would like everybody out there to consider helping Tamara by purchasing her book. It's called Hold the Line, and it's on Amazon. And yeah, I know you don't like to do the self-promotion. I don't think any of us does, but I'm going to do it for you because you won't, and you need it.
I have to do this too. Mr. Barrazo also has.
That's hilarious. You know what, Chris, where's your book, Chris? We talked about this when you stayed at my house last year. You've got some time. You've got some time, buddy. You got some time.
You know what? I got somebody
also,
who's
if you
gonna
have some spare time, I highly recommend this one also.
Yes, this is a good one. This is a good one. But yeah, Tamara, yours is over on my shelf. I just can't reach it from here.
Thank you. I have it.
It's
like this.
There you go. There you go. Hold the line.
I usually throw I have the Audible subscription, and when I'm trucking for long distance times, I just throw an audiobook in. So that's how I listen to both Tom's book and Tamara's. I don't really find a lot of time to sit and read a book these days. I seem like I'm always running. But the best way to do it is on Audible too, and both books are available on there. Tamara reads it herself. Tom, you cheat out a little bit, and you got somebody else.
I totally did. Like, listen, my voice is actually. My voice is far too sleepy and soporific, and I would hate for anyone to be driving a big giant vehicle listening to my voice.
That's good. Both of you did good. And we'll see about this. There's lots of stuff in the process right now. Like, we've got some pretty exciting news happening here shortly. Tamara and I received. Do we say anything, Tamara? We received a contract.
Probably, if you're asking me that, I would say then probably not.
Exciting stuff coming.
You can talk about it. You can talk about it, I think. Yes, you can absolutely buy a book directly from me, Martha. I am really terrible at checking my DMs though, but if you can get a hold of me, yes, I can definitely. I do have some here. So. Yes. So we made some progress with the people that are going to do the film. So we had another meeting with them last week. I think it was. Oh my God. Yeah. This week's a bit of a blur, but I think it was last week. So that's going to be starting to progress and move forward. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be a great process. So. Yeah,
it's going to be quite the thing to see it on a big screen. And of course, the stories of everybody are so important, so we hope to involve as many people as we can and tell that story. So something that I think our lives have turned into a mission now, hey, to make sure that people know what actually happened when the government lied to them, and this is another path forward for that.
Yeah. I think they're not going to be too happy. I think the Attorney General's office is going to be pretty upset that they gave us so much free time, if I'm being honest. I mean, we have lots of time.
Well, house arrest
is about French and political science, and writing books and having a show. I mean, we've got a lot. Oh, thanks, Maria. Great book. Hold the Line. Recommend it. Thank you very much.
You guys could have probably
it is a
done
film.
law degrees.
Oh gosh.
It is a film, not a documentary. Actually, Trish Woods is currently working on a documentary about our trial and a lot of the Freedom Convoy trials. Next week, actually, I believe we've got Bern Buchert and Ben Hobb are going to be joining us. And Ben Hobb is the director and the gentleman that made the Unacceptable documentary. And Bern is very heavily featured. He's kind of like the main character in a film. They're both from Fort St. John. So they're going to come on next week. And we're going to get to talk to Bern and Ben. And also, for those that don't know, he had the big Mandate Freedom truck. I don't know if you remember that big semi with the Mandate Freedom sign on the back. I got a beautiful picture of it. I'm going to learn how to share stuff on here so that I can show some pictures. But So yeah, they're going to be coming on next week, and great story. And Ben followed with his documentary crew all the way, I believe, from Fort St. John all the way to Ottawa during the convoy to sort of capture what was going on. So that should be a lot of fun.
I had to go find it. Anyone? Unacceptable.
Oh, great.
The documentary on the trucker convoys. The truth loves to be questioned, and it is absolutely amazing. It's about a little over 2 hours in length, and it can be found at unacceptable.ca. Unacceptabledoc.ca is the place to go get it, and just go give it a watch. It's streaming online as well, and it's an
Freedom
emotional.
Network. It's streaming online on the Freedom Network. You have to download, I think it's an app, the Freedom Network app, but you can, yes, you can. So
it will touch your emotions: the sad, the anger, the happy, and the proud, and the patriotic. So I encourage everybody to watch that.
Chris, I think you and I saw that together in Peterborough.
I've seen it so many times. I think.
Yeah, you did the cross country tour.
Burns' son. We were sitting at one of the documentaries, and Burns' son, his teenage son, was sitting beside us, and he was reciting the words that people were saying, and Burn kind of gave him a good old nudge in the shoulder, smarten up. But that's how many times we've seen it. So, and it's still to this day, I think it's 15, 16 times I've seen it now, and I still get emotional every time I watch it. It's just so powerful.
It is. It really is. It's the people. It was the people.
Yes. Yeah, Shuttle was there, so I see that comment. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, it's been a long day.
Right. Sounds good.
Today. It's good to see everybody again. That was a really good time. We're trying to keep in the comments. I'm trying to read them as it goes. They're all on my screen, so if you see my eyes dart off to the side here, I'm trying to read those. I don't know if there's a way I can move them so it doesn't look so obvious, but we appreciate all the support out there, guys. It's been amazing. It's been an emotional week, I'd have to say, I guess, with the news yesterday, but are we steadfast, Tamara?
Absolutely. Eye on the prize, buddy. Eye on the prize. I feel actually going into this now, I feel a little bit different because I feel like even though I'm sure both of our legal teams are still going to want us to shut our mouths and not say anything, I feel like we are definitely more free to speak tonight or, going forward. And essentially, like, I'm just going to, I'm just going to be myself because Chris and I talked about starting a show before this one, like months ago, and we realized with the trial, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So, our lawyers advised against it, obviously. So, I don't know
what's the average wage of an officer in the city of Ottawa right now, but it's kind of sad to know that there's a paid officer sitting in front of a computer screen monitoring all of our social medias on the 24 days. So if you're listening, I love you. I hope you support secretly, but that's what we are in the country right now. You have the right to remain silent, can be used against you. It's silencing when people have a story to tell, especially. I know I had a conversation with my probation officer this week, and she asked me what my thoughts were on the Canadian judicial system, and she was a little surprised when I said,
you got that one too.
I did. My answer to that was, I believe that the politicians have weaponized it against the Canadian citizens, and I feel that firmly that our trial has been political right from the start, and it continues to be this day. So
I found that to be one of the most interesting questions in that whole interview, actually, because I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but they go into your upbringing, your parents, everything, addictions, peers, who you hang around with, influences, they go through all of these types of things. And then it comes to the question is, and so what is your, has your opinion of law enforcement or the justice system changed? Right? Like against police. Like, what are you going to say to that? And I said, you know what? We have always supported our police officers. I always will. There's bad apples in every organization for sure. Absolutely. But I will always stand behind our law enforcement. But I said, as far as the Canadian judicial system goes, I said, I believe we have a legal system in Canada now and not a judicial system. But even if I would have said, anything, like why? I don't understand. I think it's a weird question. I know exactly why they're saying it, but I just think it's a really weird question. Like, what are you supposed to say after having the experience that Chris and I and you and everyone, Pat and all these people have been through in the last 4 years? Mm-hmm. Of course, we're going to have some opinions. You know,
Do you think it had any impact on their appeals launched yesterday? Like the fact that they asked us those questions, under a week ago, and then all of a sudden they're appealing? Because I was vocal in my response, and I said exactly what it was.
Actually, I think it was probably both of us going on social media and saying we're not sorry. But I don't know.
We recognize that inconveniences took place, but I was thinking about this today, and some of my anger as I was driving down, not anger, and my bitterness driving down the highway, my thoughts going wild, and I'm like, what the hell did anyone in this downtown core of Ottawa go through compared to what we've been through in the last 3 years? I'm pretty sure that those things are there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely, there's some double standards, and like these guys said tonight, it's a cultural thing, and it's going to take a lot of effort. I think some people are just so psychologically and emotionally scarred that it's going to take a lot of hard work. All of us together. It's going to take compassion, having a little bit of patience with each other instead of all this intolerance. And the other thing I noticed, I can't remember what it was today too, but I mean, yes, we all have to be vigilant and we have to be aware of what's happening in all of our institutions, but there's a fine line there, because you also, like, everything isn't a conspiracy either. And I feel like this is the world that we live in now. It is either just a wild, crazy conspiracy. Like, we've lost our center, and everyone seems to be like out here on different extremes, and we have to come back to that center, So
I have this feeling when they can't control your narrative, they try and destroy you, and that's happened so many times before. So
let them come.
And I agree.
Let them come.
Some is best just to ignore, and some are best to troll, and just you leave it that way. Because sometimes your opinion could hurt some delicate feelings, so it's better to remain silent in certain situations, shall we say?
Well, usually I call you, Chris, and I say, go light this person up, because I'm going to bust my phone, right. But you're way better at this than I am. Let them have it, I've been
known to be a little bit of an internet troll from time to time. I don't know where that came from, but I am who I am.
That's going to get you in trouble one day, Mr. Barber.
I'm a little bit better at it now, though. I'd like to think I critiqued it just somewhat. Yes. I know I watch my language on there, and I kind of try to watch what I say, but every now and then my emotions get the best of me. It's just typical for anybody in the situation we're in right now. There's been a lot of baggage the last number of years, and a lot of trauma that's been involved with our lives too. So we'll just keep standing. That's what we're doing, and I keep working. My legs are still sore from like Tuesday when we moved that building. I can't believe my. Whew.
Wow, I bet. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to say thanks, everyone, for joining us once again on this episode of House Arrest. Special thanks to our guests, Mark, Adam, and John, for stopping by. I hope you found this informative. I know I did. It's always a pleasure. And again, we'll be back next week with Bern and Ben, and we'll talk about some unacceptable and some trucker stories. So thanks a lot, you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.